Well, exploratory testing best practices is kind of an anti-pattern itself. If you look at our other videos about exploratory testing is all about a randomness of the testing. There is no structured, there shouldn't be any structured way to figure out unforeseen issues which we couldn't think of before. Like you might be create account, login, issue, payment, um add to cart, you check out, you add the rating. So these are all consumer flows which we have a very definitive expectations. When we don't have a definitive expectation is what found out by exploratory. When you are navigating away, some buttons is not accessible, some buttons supposed to be enabled, not enabled. So these kind of issues will all happens, and it's not very intuitively expected issues. So you might not be having test cases or test scripts. So for that we do exploratory testing. So in terms of that, with that context, if you think about it, writing test cases, or even the online, one of the online images I saw attached here, that it says enabling and analysis goes into a outcome of like test design and test execution. But exploratory testing is the idea of executing test execution without test design. So how do we get a best practice for this? So what I do usually exploratory testing at, also need to understand when we would be executing exploratory test. So the idea is this: you have a static automated regression and you have a set of test cases with steps and validations, expected validations. You have it part of your functional test. So your regression is automated, you do some more functional test, but before going to production or before you do a promotion to the upstream environment, you wanted to do one round of quick exploratory testing to figure out what we could have missed in the regression and functional testing. So that is the idea of it. So when you're thinking about best practices, the basic idea is this: you have to think about you have a common goal. You don't have like you are going to do um, let's say create account and then add something to cart and then check out. It's not a flow. So you have to randomly take a module and then play around with it. Say take a exploratory testing you might be already having. So what my recommendation or best practice is going against the test cases. So in the test cases or test scripts what you already validated for exploratory, you have to go against it. If you are trying to like increase, you need to add more items to cart, what you could have been done is deleting completely to zero. You completely remove that item from your cart. So you have to, it depends on your test case. If you have already have adding and deletion, then you have to think about like how we can I navigate to checkout page directly, can I go to payments page directly without doing all these any of the prerequisite tests. Anything pops your mind. So the best practice is this: to do a good exploratory testing, you need to know good enough information about the domain, what are all the consumer patterns, and then you do anti-patterns, and then you do the patterns which is not predominantly tested or automated. So that is the idea behind how you wanted to do the exploratory testing and what is the best practice. So the benefit of is it's obvious. It's pretty much that it could have been regression, it could have been missed in regression, it could have been missed in functional test, but you might be finding it in exploratory. But this is true for all types of testing. Very specific and cautious thing is like it's a collective knowledge what you gains from exploratory testing. Like when you write a test, mostly you will be using your requirement document or the information you already collected based on the project managers, developers, whoever giving you the information. Based on the information collected, you do that. At this point in exploratory testing, you wanted to eliminate or remove all this knowledge from you. It's more like unlearning what we already know about the product. You know the business, you know the domain, but you unlearn about the product and you try some, it's literally like exploring, right? So if I'm traveling to a new country in a like with the family, I would be planning, properly planning. Exploratory testing is more like backpacking. 80 to 90% of the time there will not be any difference. You will be reaching the same place, you will be spending some time at the same time. But as frequent travelers, you already know backpacking gives you very unique experience than a planned trip to a popular space and you book all your hotels, dinners, lunches, all of them. But backpacking will give you unique experiences. You might be staying in dormitories, you might be staying at open spaces at sometimes. So those kind of unforeseen areas, unknown areas is what we are finding from exploratory testing.